everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing some medieval history trivia questions because I'm currently thoroughly enjoying two games that are set in the medieval period. Those two games are Crusader Kings 3 and Kingdom Come Deliverance. So, that has inspired me to do a video on that topic. So, as always, a few disclaimers. Ignore the creaky desk chair in the back. And also, I'm going to have the iPad at the front here for this video, so as to not have to stare like that when I read the question. Hopefully it should be alright. Let me know if it makes any difference and I'll change it or keep it. Thirdly, this video is going to take the format of another video that I've done a while ago. Because this is like a niche topic, I could only really find a website, a quiz on the Britannica Encyclopedia website that has questions, ascertaining to the medieval period. So, in today's video, I will ask a question and there will be 4 options for you all to choose from. And I will also join in by providing an answer that I think the answer is. But don't be biased by my answer, because I'll probably be wrong, but I thought it would be fun to join in today's video. So, without further ado, let us begin. So let's move the iPad over there. Sorry for the very disruptive method of moving it. So anyways, let's begin. Which crusade leader's death while attempting to swim a stream was regarded by Muslims in the Holy Land as an act of God? Philip II, Richard I, Frederick I, or Conrad III? Which crusade leader, which death was seen as an act of God? An act of God. The answer is, I didn't give a guess. Well, the answer is Frederick I. If anyone guessed that. Question number 2. Which group propagated the views of the 14th century theologian John Wycliffe, considered one of the forerunners of the Protestant Reformation in England? Which group propagated the views of the 14th century theologian John Wycliffe, considered one of the forerunners of the Protestant Reformation in England? There's a little timer on these questions. I forgot to turn it off, so it's already given me the answer, so I can't guess this one again. But yeah, so the 4 options are Quakers, Protestants, Lollards, and the Freemasons. Which group propagated this man's views? Sorry, I was just checking the audio. The answer is the Lollards. Question number 3. Which king of Wessex prevented England from falling to the Danes in the 9th century? Athelwulf, Guthrum, Charlemagne, or Alfred? Now quickly, before the timer reaches 0, my guess is Alfred. Because if I'm correct, this Alfred has an epithet, I think that's what they call it, like the name, Alfred the does actually tell me here. Alfred the Great was the King of Wessex, a Saxon kingdom in southwestern England. He prevented England from falling to the Danes in the 9th century. Sorry, I think before I said the Vikings, when I was rereading the question, so I apologise, it's the Danes. Who was the first archbishop to rule the whole English Church? The possible answers are Theodore of Canterbury, Anselm of Canterbury, Honorius of Canterbury, and Wilfrid of York. Wilfrid of York. The first archbishop. I forgot to give my guess. Again, I keep forgetting. The answer is Theodore of Canterbury. Question number 5. Which king of England began his reign in 1042 and was eventually made a saint because of his reputation for piety? The options are Edward, William I, Ethelred II, or Ethelred I. I've got 5 seconds. I'm gonna, put the iPad down so I don't see a countdown. My guess is Edward, because I think he was Edward the Confessor, but I could be wrong, of course, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's just move the iPad back. I'm a bit concerned that the desk that I'm leaning my arm on to put the iPad in front here is creaking, but we'll have to wait and see. Please let me know if you enjoyed this video and if it was alright, just because I'm feeling a bit self-conscious with all the change that I've done for this one video. But yeah, please let me know. The answer is Edward. Edward, also called Saint Edward the Confessor, was the King of England from 1042 to 1066. His reputation for piety preserved much of the dignity of the English crown. He was canonized in 1161, and his heir, Harold Godwinson, lost the throne to William the Conqueror. Fun fact, I just added that. Which King of Scotland gained independence from English overlordship in 1189? We have Malcolm I, Richard I, William I, and Malcolm IV. Which King of Scotland gained independence over English overlordship in 1189? 1189. I can't provide an answer to this one because I've tried to record this video I think 3 times, and this was one of the questions that I already read, so I know the answer. The answer is William I, also known as William the Lion. He was King of Scotland from 1165 to 1214, although he submitted to English overlordship for 15 years of his reign. He ultimately obtained independence for his kingdom. Good for him. The teachings of which Roman Catholic saint were condemned in 1277 by the University Masters of Paris? The options we have are Thomas Aquinas, Ignatius of Loyola, Benedict of Nursia, or Bernard of Clairvaux, somewhere in France, I presume. I'm just gonna guess the French one. Sorry, I've forgotten his name, but the countdown has ended, so I can't check without spoiling the answer for myself. I guess it's the fourth one, the one that I just read. We'll have to wait and see though. The next section that I do, I'm going to make sure that I definitely turn off the timer, because the first time that I recorded this video I did, and then I refreshed the website to redo it, and then I just forgot when I was trying to start recording, and it's being a real pain to, have the freedom to answer them for myself. Anyways, the answer is Thomas Aquinas, or however you pronounce it. In January 1274, St. Thomas Aquinas was personally summoned by Pope Gregory X to the Second Council of Lyon, which was an attempt to repair the schism between the Latin and Greek churches. In 1277, the Masters of Paris, the highest theological jurisdiction in a church, condemned a series of 219 propositions. 12 of these propositions were theses of Thomas. This was the most serious condemnation possible in the Middle Ages. That's unfortunate. Which author of a popular English medieval travel book made up many of the tales in his work and may never have travelled at all, if in fact he himself existed? The answers are Paul Thoreau, Marco Polo, Odoric of Pordenone, or John Mandeville. I'm gonna guess Marco Polo, I'm not sure. Or maybe Jono, maybe the John one. I guess it'd probably John, because that sounds like an English name. English traveller. The answer is John Mandeville. Sir John Mandeville was the purported author of a collection of travellers' tales from around the world, generally known as the Travels of Sir John Mandeville. The actual author of the tales remains as uncertain as the existence of an English knight named John Mandeville. Interesting. Which of these kings defended the Holy Roman Empress Matilda's rights to the English throne? We have the options of David I, Henry Plantagenet, Stephen, or Malcolm III. Well, I'm going to guess maybe Malcolm III, because Stephen was the name of the person in which she was competing with, during the anarchy. I think he was her cousin, and her father was Henry I. Matilda's father was Henry I, and he had a son who died in a shipwreck, and so the succession was thrown out. And then, the whole anarchy period began, where Matilda wanted to get what was rightfully hers, which was the English crown. But Stephen stole it from her because she was a woman, and even, back then they weren't comfortable with the idea of a woman ruling them. To think that it wasn't until, when was it? Mary I, in 15 something, I think. Yeah, surely it was 15 something, because Elizabeth ruled until the late 1500s or the early 1600s, very early 1600s. And obviously Elizabeth came after Mary. But anyways, I think I did give an answer. The correct answer is David I. David I was one of the most powerful Scottish kings, reigned from 1124. David recognised his niece, the Holy Roman Empress Matilda, as heir to Henry I in England, and from 1136 he fought for her against King Stephen, hoping thereby to gain Northumberland for himself. Scheming. The final question. What theologian, historian, and chronologist helped popularize the practice of dating events relative to the birth of Jesus Christ? The options are Augustine Augustine of Hippo or Hippo, Bede or Bede, Dionysius Exiguus, Admir de Chabannes. Sorry, those are very interesting names, or very fancy names, whatever word you want to use. The timer. The annoying timer has already run out, so I know the answer, so I can't guess. It is what it is. I'm definitely turning off that timer. The answer is Bede or Bede. Saint Bede or Bede the Venerable, who died in 735, was an Anglo-Saxon theologian, historian and chronologist. He wrote Historia Ecclesiastica Gentis Anglorum, which is translated to Ecclesiastical History of the English People, a source vital to the history of the conversion of people in the British Isles to Christianity. His method of dating events relative to Jesus Christ's birth, that is AD, came into general use through the popularity of the Historia Ecclesiastica and the two works he wrote on chronology. Interesting. So now we have part 2, which consists of 9 questions. We are turning off the timer. Let's begin. Question number 11. What was a ceorl in medieval England? This is spelled C-E-O-R-L, and it existed in medieval England. The 4 options are a soldier, a sailor, a free peasant, or a craftsman. Which one of the 4 is this mysterious thing starting with C? I guess that the answer is a free peasant, but let's wait and see. The answer is a free peasant. What a good guess. A C-E-O-R-L was a free peasant in medieval England. The word C came to denote a subject peasant, and by the 14th century was used as a pejorative. Interesting. Question number 2 or 12. What rebellion in England was partially resolved by the personal intervention of the young King Richard II? The possible answers are the 30 Years' War, the revolutions of 1848, the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, and the Revolt of Siombay or Siombi or whatever, however you pronounce it. I am going to guess. Let's have a look again. I am going to guess. Maybe the 30 Years' War, because I think that was fought with France. I'm not sure when Richard II, I'm trying to put him into, like, perspective, as in, like, they're trying to figure out around when he lived. Because obviously Richard III was not until, it'd have to be the 1300s, because he came into power after his brother Edward IV died, and Edward's daughter then came on to be the Queen of England, because she married Henry VII, ending the Wars of the Roses. So I presume, I'm not sure when Richard II lived. It would have to be between like 1066 and like the 1300s. So I'd guess the 30 Years' War, because I think that was a fought with France, and I know that England had a lot of French territory around the time of like William the And obviously they don't have it now, so they would have had to lose it by some point. Let's see. I was wrong. All that yapping for nothing. The answer is the Peasants' Revolt of 1381. And it says the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, also called Wat Tyler's Rebellion, was the first significant popular rebellion in English history. King Richard II met Tyler and his followers on June 14th, the day after they had forced the surrender of the Tower of London. Tyler was killed in Richard's presence by the Mayor of London. The king appealed to the rebels as their sovereign, and after promising reforms, persuaded them to disperse. Wonder if he followed through on those reforms. Who knows? I really don't know. I apologise for the yapping, like when I'm trying to justify my answers. I just enjoy yapping about it, and even if I'm wrong, it's still fun, but I hope you enjoy it nonetheless. But anyways, during which English monarch's reign was Archbishop Thomas Becket murdered in Canterbury Cathedral? Sorry, I watched a video on this like within the last week. I remember this, but I'm trying to remember who did it. I really have not a clue, which is crazy because I just learned about it. The options are William I, Richard III, Elizabeth II, and Henry II. Henry II. What's my guess? I'm trying to toss up between Richard III and Henry II. I really have no idea, but I know that it happened because I think the king got angry over something. So I'm not being very detailed, but he got angry over something to do with the clergy, and he went on this massive rant to these people about his closest people, not advisors, but maybe they were. I don't know who exactly they were, but people who the king would chat to. He went on a massive rant about this Thomas Becket dude and how he kept getting in the way of what he wanted to do or something like that. And these men took it upon themselves, thinking that the king was... They took what the king said as, oh, go and kill him. So they went to his, where was it? His cathedral. And I think threatened him and then killed him, in a really, really, a horrible way. I can't remember how, but it was, horrible. And then, Henry was or not Henry, but whichever king was oh, oops, I didn't want to do that. And it was, a big, tarnish on that king's reputation, but I can't remember which one it was. Because I know Richard III was already tarnished by the fact that people suspected that he killed his nephews. So I'm gonna guess Henry II. Wow, what a good guess, I got it right. So to everyone, the answer is Henry II. And it says here, Thomas Becket was the Chancellor of England 1155 to 62, and Archbishop of Canterbury from 1162 to 1170. During the reign of King Henry II, his career was marked by a long quarrel with Henry that ended with Becket's murder in Canterbury Cathedral. I'm pretty proud of myself that I got that right, even though I only learned about it a week ago, but still. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Which of these English kings has a nickname derived from a word meaning bad counsel? The options are Edgar, William I, Athelwulf, or Ethelred II. I have not heard of this nickname. It's definitely not William I, because if I'm correct, William I is William the Conqueror, and obviously his epithet was William the Conqueror. There is something I'm going to try to speak over, like I'm just going to keep speaking, because there is a really loud plane going over my house at 1:16 a.m. I don't know what plane that is, because my local airport has a curfew that began, like, the curfew starts at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock every night, and it is 1 a.m. So, slightly annoyed, but I'm just really praying that it is not too loud and that my talking over it helped it or got rid of it. I should have just edited it out, but it's alright, it's done now because I haven't kept track of what time it was. So anyways, sorry about that. I'm going to guess that the king was maybe Edgar. Yeah, maybe Edgar. We'll see. No, the answer was Ethelred II, and it says here that Ethelred II was the king of the English from 978 to 1013, and from 1014 to 1016, an ineffectual ruler who failed to prevent the Danes from overrunning England. He was called Ethelred the Unready. That makes sense. The nickname is derived from unread, meaning bad counsel or no counsel. That's interesting. I didn't know that is what unready comes from. I should have guessed that. I knew about Ethelred the Unready. Okay. Who among these kings preserved the political ties between England and Normandy that William I / the Conqueror had established? The answers are Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, William II, or Robert II. Robert II. Robert II, or Elizabeth I, or Henry VIII, or William II. I will wager a guess that it's William II, but I could be wrong. Because I don't think there's been a King Robert of England. I know there's been Robert of Scotland, but not of England, I don't think. The answer is William II, and it says here William II was the son of William I, William the Conqueror, and the King of England from 1087 to 1100. He prevented the dissolution of political ties between England and Normandy, but his strong-armed rule earned him a reputation as a brutal, corrupt tyrant. I swear every time there is a really good monarch, their heir always ends up being like the worst person alive. It's like they take the great achievements of their parent and decide to just chuck it all in the trash and just ruin it all. Okay, the next question. Which king of England spent only about 6 months in his realm during his 10-year reign, which began in 1189? The possible answers are Richard I, James I, George I, and Edwig. My answer is definitely, I think, Richard I, because James I of England was not until Queen Elizabeth I died in, whenever she died, no offense, Elizabeth, and, and the crown went to him. George I was not until I think Anne died, Queen Anne, who was a Stuart monarch, and when she died, it went to the Hanoverian dynasty, and it was George I. Edwig, I'm not too sure who he was, but he sounds like he was an Anglo-Saxon king, so I presume that, I know that they weren't ruling in 1189, so surely it wasn't him. guess. I'm not gonna guess. I think I know that, like, he was not in the kingdom because he was off, like, fighting, like, 24/7. And I think he was involved in, like, the Crusades, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Nicknamed the Lionheart, was mainly interested in a crusade to recover Jerusalem and in a struggle to maintain his French holdings against the French King Philip II. Augustus. He spent only about 6 months of his 10-year reign, 1189 to 1199, in England. Question number 17. Who became King of England when his rival for the throne was supposedly killed in battle with an arrow shot through his eye? The options are Henry VII, William I, Canute, or Henry II. Henry II. I am not sure, to be honest. I feel like that's something that's very memorable, but I really have no idea. Shot through the eye. Shot through the eye. Maybe William. I'm not sure if Harold Godwinson was shot through the eye, though. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'll just pass this question because I'm not too sure. Oh, what a guess. William I, the Conqueror, was the King of England from 1066 to 1087. He seized control of England through his victory at the Battle of Hastings, defeating Harold II, the last Anglo-Saxon King of England, who reputedly died after having been shot with an arrow through his eye. I did know he was shot with an arrow, but I didn't know it was through the eye, allegedly. Anyways, question number 18. Which English king led his country into the 100 Years' War with France? The options are Henry IV, Edward III, John, or Richard I. What is the answer out of those 4 men? I'm not sure, to be honest. The 100 Years' War, I'm trying to remember what that was, like, even about. I will guess. Maybe Edward III. I'm not sure, because I don't know, that just feels right, but I could very well be wrong. I guess we shall see. I was also thinking about guessing John, because John just wasn't a good king, so he might have done that, but we'll wait and see. The answer is Edward III, King of England from 1327 to 1377, led England into the 100 Years' War with France. Now, the lucky final question. It's funny that I just mentioned King John, because this question is, in what year was the Magna Carta first granted? In what year was the Magna Carta first granted? The options are 1066, 1348, 1215, or 1689. My guess, personally, is 1215, because I feel like 1348 is a bit too late. I'm trying to remember who was king then, 1348. That might have been Edward III, because I think that was around like when the plague broke out in like Europe, and I think Edward III was the English king during the period of the biggest, like the major outbreak of the plague. So 1215 is my final answer. The answer is 1215. Magna Carta, also known as Great Charter, was the charter of English liberties granted by King John in 1215 under threat of civil war, and reissued with alterations in 1216, 1217, and 1220. the results were, wow, I got 7 out of 9. I'm pretty happy with that. When I was actually given the time to think about it, I did pretty good. Anyways, that is all for today's video, and I apologize that it is extremely long. My phone is currently telling me that it's 37 minutes long. I just went on and on and on and on and on and on and on about medieval England, basically. So I apologize if it's a bit too long for your taste, but nonetheless, I hope that you enjoyed it, because I enjoyed making it, because I'm really into this topic at the moment, and I enjoyed joining in on the questions and answers. Anyways, that is all for today's video. I apologize for just any noise. I heard the house creaking. I just heard a lot of random small noises. That loud plane going over. I apologize for all that, for the plane, for the creaking, for any noise. I hope it wasn't too disruptive, and I hope that my audio, my noise cancellation thing, noise reduction, does its job and reduces the noise. Now, nonetheless, I hope that you thoroughly enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and